Man, do I love street art here in Los Angeles. Well, Hollywood in particular. Some of it's pretty darn amazing and some of it, well, not so amazing. But this one here of Judy Garland from The Wizard of Oz is probably the best that I've ever seen. What sucks is, a lot of times these things get, I wouldn't say destroyed, they get painted over, they get a bunch of graffiti on them. This one here, believe it or not, has been here for over 2 years. Today we're going to be doing a video that I've been wanting to do for quite some time, and that's to visit the graves of some of the people who were involved with the movie The Wizard of Oz. Well, the ones here in the Los Angeles area though.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. A bad luck's always coming my way.
Now, I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've seen the movie The Wizard of Oz, but I will tell you this. It's one of the earliest movie memories I have with my father. You see, he used to get me and my sister every other weekend, and we would stay up late on Saturday night and watch movies. Well, one Saturday night in particular, he was very excited to show us this movie called The Wizard of Oz. I remember it clearly. We were sitting, me and my sister, on the floor. We had Diet Pepsi. We had potato chips, sour cream and onion potato chip dip, as well as the popcorn that you made on the stove. And we sat there. My dad was so excited for us to see it, and it completely blew my mind, especially when it went from black and white to color. And with that being said, hopefully Dorothy will be here for quite some time. It is an absolutely beautiful wall mural. Now let's go visit some cemeteries. We have a lot of ground to cover today. To me, it makes the most sense that if we're going to be doing a video on The Wizard of Oz, that we probably should start the video off at the man who created the land itself and all the characters. And that is L. Frankbaum, 1856 to 1919. He's buried here at Forest Lawn, Glendale, with his wife, Maud. A single red rose right there. Now, L. Frankbaum died on May 5th, 1919 at the age of 62 following a stroke. Now, on his deathbed, he told his wife, "Now I can cross the shifting sands." Now, I found that a little odd. Never heard anything like that before, so I did some research. And it turns out in the last book, I think it's the last book, that L. Frankbaum wrote on The Wizard of Oz, in the back of it, there's a map that he created detailing the land of Oz. And surrounding Oz is a desert called the Deadly Desert. Now, there's a section of the Deadly Desert known as the Shifting Sands, a place where no living thing can cross, only in death, which is why he said it on his deathbed. Now, interesting, you know about the Deadly Desert because that's the same desert, the same stretch of land, I guess you will, where Dorothy crossed in the hot air balloon to get to Oz and then back home to Kansas. You can see it even more in the sequel, Return to Oz.
Maybe this is Oz. If this is the land of Oz, then this is the Deadly Desert.
Deadly Desert?
Anything living that touches it turns to sand.
Now, there's one more thing about L. Frankbaum that I want to point out. And you see, he was a storyteller by nature. Well, one day he was telling the stories of Oz to a group of children, and somebody who overheard him asked him, "Hey, what do you call this land that you're telling these kids about?" And supposedly, rumor again, he looked around the room, Baum did, kind of creatively thinking about it, and on the spot he saw a filing cabinet that said O-Z. He thought for a split second and he said, Oz. The land is called Oz. Now just up the hill from L. Frankbaum and the Great Mausoleum is where Auntie Em and Uncle Henry are buried. Auntie Em was Claire Blandick, and Charlie Grapewin was the actor who played Uncle Henry. Sadly, we can't get into the Great Mausoleum. They have it completely blocked off unless you're family. Now, even though I can't take you guys inside the Great Mausoleum to show you the final resting places of Auntie Em and Uncle Henry, I can walk around and tell you the story and show you the outside of the place. Now, Claire Blandick, she died April 15th, 1962. She committed suicide. She took a bunch of sleeping pills and lay down on her couch and went to bed. And her friend, I think it was, is the one who found her a couple hours later. Now, she did leave behind a suicide note and said, "I am now about to make the great adventure. I cannot endure this agonizing pain any longer. It is all over my body. Neither can I face the impending blindness." Now, Claire Blandick lived one heck of a life, that's for sure. If I'm not mistaken, it was close to 200 acting roles, most of them uncredited. Now, towards the end of her life, she suffered from crippling arthritis and was going blind, something that she was absolutely terrified of. When she retired, she moved into the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel right there in the heart of Hollywood, the same hotel that houses the Marilyn Monroe Haunted Mirror. We did a video on it a couple weeks ago. And ultimately, that's where she committed suicide. Now, I really wish that I can take you guys inside there. There's a bunch of graves, or a bunch of people interred inside the Great Mausoleum that I want to visit. One day we will. At the end of this road, and about the center of your screen, is the Great Mausoleum. That's where Auntie Em and Uncle Henry are interred. And on the other side of that is the final resting place of L. Frankbaum. Well, on this side of the mausoleum, and what's known as the Sunrise Slope section, is the final resting place of a man by the name of Mitchell Lewis. Now, that name may not ring a bell, but in The Wizard of Oz, he played a character known as the Captain of the Winky Guard. Trust me, you know him.
I'm melting! Melting! Oh, what a world! What a world!
She's dead. You killed her. Hail to Dorothy! The Wicked Witch is dead! Hail! Hail to Dorothy!
Now, I'm not gonna lie, I feel a little bad showing Mitchell Lewis's grave right now because it looks like at one point somebody with a tractor got a little reckless or a little careless over here. But he's buried, let's get a little closer to it, right back here. Mitchell J. Lewis, 1880 to 1956. Again, Captain of the Winky Guard. Next, we find ourselves in Forest Lawn, Hollywood, visiting the final resting place of actor Jerry Maron, who was one of the Munchkins in The Wizard of Oz. More importantly, one of the Lollipop Guild. Again, even more specific, he was the Munchkin who actually handed Dorothy the lollipop whenever she first gets to Munchkin Land in the Land of Oz. Now, he is buried right over here, well, interred. Now, Jerry Maron was his stage name, I guess you would say. Now, I'm probably gonna butcher this. Gerard Marengi, Jerry Maron. January 24th, 1920 to May 24th, 2018, in loving memory of the Wizard of Oz, Lollipop Kid. A couple months ago, we were here in this cemetery doing a video on the final resting place of actress Naya Rivera, who died tragically in Lake Piru. Now, she's from the TV show Glee. Now, her final resting place is right there. Sandra Dee is right there, and Jerry Maron is right below Sandra Dee. Now, sadly, Jerry Maron died at the age of 98 from old age related diseases. Now, an interesting fact, aside from being the Munchkin that actually handed Dorothy the lollipop, he was the oldest living adult Munchkin at the time that he died, as well as the only living cast member who had a speaking role. Pretty wild, right? 98 years old.
Jerry Maron, the last surviving actor who played a munchkin in the original movie of The Wizard of Oz, has died in California. He was 98. He portrayed one of the 124 members of the Munchkin Lollipop Guild in the classic 1939 film. He became known as the Lollipop Kid thanks to this moment in the film when he hands a lollipop to Dorothy, played, of course, by Judy Garland. Many years later, he delighted fans with this rendition of his song.
We represent the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild, and in the name of the Lollipop Guild, we wish to welcome you to Munchkin Land.
We now find ourselves in Hollywood Forever Cemetery, right down the street from where Jessica and I live. Right now, I'm walking through what's known as the Abbey of Psalms, which is where the director of The Wizard of Oz is interred, a man by the name of Victor Fleming. Now, not only did Victor Fleming direct The Wizard of Oz, but he also directed another movie known as Gone with the Wind. Still haven't seen it, and just to be honest with you, I really have no plans to see it at all. But Victor Fleming died January 6, 1949 of a heart attack. And he is interred right here. He leadeth me, Victor Fleming, 1889 to 1949. Beloved wife and mother, Lucille Fleming, and beloved daughter, Victoria Fleming. Not too far from where Victor Fleming is interred is the Judy Garland Pavilion. Like I said, she has a little spot named after her. She's not the only person in here, but let's walk up to the plaque so you can take a look at it. It's very pretty. Now she's in here directly across from the doors. And to be honest, from what I remember, this looks almost exactly the way that it did in Ferncliff Cemetery. Let me get down this way, right past these chairs. And there she is. I'm gonna get a little closer. Judy Garland, June 10th, 1922 to June 22nd, 1969. I'll come to you smiling through the years. Now, sadly, Judy Garland died of an accidental overdose on June 22nd, 1969 at the age of 47. Now, I say accidental because at the time of her death, there was a lot of speculation whether or not it was suicide or an accident. And ultimately, it was ruled an accident. Now, she's been through a lot. All kinds of different drugs, this and that. In fact, at the end of her funeral, her Wizard of Oz co-star, Ray Bolger, who played the Scarecrow, he's quoted in saying that she was just plain wore out. She's been through a lot.
No, I'll never get home.
Stay with us then, Dorothy. We all love you.
Something else, right? Every day, I realize how lucky Jessica and I are to be living here in Hollywood, old school Hollywood, as well as the new stuff that keeps coming out, but the history that's here. This is the kind of stuff that we live for.
She isn't coming yet, Toto. Did she hurt you? She tried to, didn't she? Come on, we'll go tell Uncle Henry and Auntie Anne.
Now, here at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, there's one more person I want to include in this video, and that is Toto. Now, this isn't technically his grave. It's more of a monument dedicated to the memory. Actually, it says that this monument is dedicated to the memory of beloved Toto from the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz. After the death of Toto, originally named Terry in 1945, owner and trainer Carl Spitz buried the Karen Terrier on his ranch in Studio City. The 1958 construction of the Ventura Freeway destroyed her final resting place, so there actually is no grave of her. So this is the only thing here in Hollywood where you can actually go and visit something for Toto. In fact, on one side of the stone here, it actually says, "In memory of Toto." Something else, right? On the other side, it says, "We give you this new home 53 years later, as there's no place like home, and rest in peace, dear friend. The Toto Memorial Committee, January 18th, 2011. I mean, I know it's just the statue, but this is probably one of the most famous dogs from our childhood. I mean, everybody knows Toto, and I think that looks pretty spot on.
That's the trouble. I can't make up my mind. I haven't got a brain. Only straw.
Now here's a little interesting story about Ray Bolger, who was the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz. Originally, he was cast as the Tin Man, but he didn't like the lack of mobility. He was a very animated actor, and he wanted something a little bit more, so he convinced the producers to allow him to be the Scarecrow, which I personally think was a great choice. Now sadly, Ray Bolger died January 15th, 1987 from complications of bladder cancer. Now there's absolutely no way I'm going to be able to keep my shadow out of this. But you see that white flower right there? That's where Bela Lugosi's buried. And a few rows in front of him, right here, is Jack Haley, the guy who played the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz. Husband, Jack, 1898 to 1979. Right next to him, wife, Florence. That's it, just a simple stone.
Beautiful! What a nickel! It's empty. The tinsmith forgot to give me a heart.
Now, Jack Haley, believe it or not, wasn't the first choice to play the Tin Man. The first choice was Ray Bolger, but he wanted a character that had more mobility, and he didn't like the stiffness of the Tin Man. He was a very animated individual. I can relate to that. The second actor, I don't remember his name, sadly, but he ended up getting really sick. You see, the silver paint that they painted on the Tin Man, originally it was a powder. And the second actor, he ended up breathing it in and got so sick that he almost died, and he had to tap out, which brings us to Jack Haley. Now, Jack Haley, what they did, they turned the powder into a paste and they painted it on. He too got sick right at the beginning. It got in his eyes, and he had a really bad eye infection for like the first week or two of filming, but he got over it, and the rest, ready for it, is hiss. It'll be history. And with that being said, thank you for joining us on another Grimm adventure, this time to some of the graves of those who were involved with the movie The Wizard of Oz. Now, of course, it's not all their graves. Some people were cremated, and some people are actually buried in different states. One day we'll get there. This was just for those here in Los Angeles. Thank you, and as always, happy Halloween.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.